talk about today. Oh yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. So what I'm going to talk about today is council membership and membership specifically in troops. And I'm not bragging when I say this. I'm just for context, for background. The reason that I'm talking about this is I joined a unit when I crossed over with my Weeblos Den over a decade ago, I hate to say. When I did, I doubled the size of the troop, more than doubled it. There were 6 scouts in the troop at the time, and I crossed over with 7 Weeblos, and I doubled the size of the troop. And when I left 9.5 years later, we had 58 youth in our troop, and we were a very active troop. So what I'm telling you is just, I'm giving you what worked for me. And I'm hopeful that many of us here are brave enough to try the same thing, because it is a different paradigm. And specifically what I'm referring to is the need for us to go out in a post-pandemic era and literally headhunt youth. And I mean that in that sense of the word. We're not advertising and we're not waiting for people to come to us. Those that grew up with scouts themselves or parents in their background, they're going to come to us anyway. So what are we doing in order to get to the people that don't know about scouting and should, is what we're going to focus on today, because we have to do things differently if we're going to thrive in a post-pandemic environment. And here's why. If we could go to the next slide, here's why this is urgent and something that needs to really be an area of focus. So when you look at the age distribution of our youth today in our council, you can see that the 5th graders and the 6th graders, there's a dip in membership. It goes up slightly in the 7th grade, and it goes up, fortunately, in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, right? So this is the future of Boy Scouts that we're talking about here in the Phoenix Metro. Now, unfortunately, these numbers are only 30% of what they were pre-pandemic after the LDS Church left and before the pandemic. This is a third of where we were for scouting in Arizona at that time. And if you look at the numbers from last year at the top of the slide, you'll see that in June, 280 Webelos crossed over and 183 did not. We had 35% attrition in Webelos to scouts in this last spring. So it is really a matter of urgent importance that we focus on what are we going to do to actually recruit youth this spring. So that's what we're going to focus on, and we're going to talk about how to do that. So the council, as many of you know, has invested in a marketing company called Lavage. If we go to the next slide, this is a company called Lavage. Lavage is a very well-known marketing company here in Phoenix. They're the gold standard as it relates to 503c organizations. And what they do is they do a lot of market analysis and surveying of potential prospects, your client base, our potential scouting youth, to understand what are the parents talking about that they're looking for their kids. So first and foremost, any successful recruiting program that's focusing on non-scouting families, scouts that do not have kids in the Webelos, they're going to focus on themes that are going to sound a little different than themes that you as leaders are probably used to. So, so one of the things that resonated a lot with parents, and one of the feedback items that they came back to us with, is that there's a few things in here that we want to make sure that we're talking to parents about. And I'm specifically referring to parents in the 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, right? These are, again, scouts that are not, the kids that are not in Cub Scouts today, and youth that we want to try to get to and get the scouting message out. So be prepared for whatever life throws you. Escape the indoors. Book smarts and street smarts and scout smarts was one of the themes. Live the scout life. Someone asks you to tie a knot, you ask which kind, right? Things like that. One of the other things that they really focused on and identified for us is did we lose the presentation, Matt?
I'm going to switching how I'm sharing it. I'll have it back up in just one second.
All right. Is being able to focus on safety first, and secondly, character building activities. Character building was one of the key themes for Boy Scouts, and the themes for Boy Scouts were different than the themes for Cub Scouts. but character building activities, things that will, in effect, prepare kids for life, right? So what are we doing relative to that? Now, here's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is back in the 90s and early 2000s, those have been in scouting for a while and volunteering your time and your philanthropy might remember that National came out with some significant studies at the time. And if Matt, if we could go to the next slide. What National basically came back with is there was an identity problem for the Scouts. And the identity problem was kids said that what Scouts did was awesome and was very cool and very interesting. But Scouts themselves was not cool and was not interesting. So one of the things that I did on a regular basis when I was recruiting, and I recruited every spring from one junior high, specifically 7th graders, and one grade school, specifically 6th graders. And what I did to recruit is that I found one of my youth who went to that school. And I used them and their parents to be able to get into the school. But I didn't talk about Scouts. What I talked about is, what do Scouts do? We fish, we horseback ride, we mountain bike, we hike, we backpack, we rifle and pistol shoot, we rock climb and rappel. We know what to do with a knife and a saw and an axe and how to do it safely. We do fire starting, we do fire management, fire safety, rope bridge and tower courses, and everything in the great American outdoors. We focus specifically on what it is. And it wasn't me telling the story, it was my scout who was telling the story and telling it to his other friends. But the hurdle that we had to overcome constantly was, how do we get into the school? And how we get into the school is we offered to do things for that school, which is why we focused on 1 or 2 schools. Because if we could embed ourselves with the school and the principal at that school, the principal would hopefully get to a point where they would be like, you know, we're not doing this assembly without the Scouts doing the flags. And it was just a no-brainer that they would invite us. Now, that's not what I had in my troop. I had kids coming from 8 different schools in my troop, but I wanted to focus on the ones that were the closest to the troop. And the reason why was because a simple fact of life is, the shorter the commute, the more likely the kid's going to be there. And so I focused on those 2 schools that were closest, 1 elementary school, one junior high. And I just got in with the principal, but it wasn't me going out. It was me working with a parent who had somebody in that school to be able to identify, what can we do to help the school out? So in the elementary school, when it came to the spring carnival, the Scouts would be there and help with cleanup. When it came to the junior high, we did field service day. We went through and we just cleaned up all the fields. We just did a lot of trash pickup. When it came to flags, we offered to do flags at every ceremony, at every assembly. At the junior high, we actually got the principal thought it would be awesome to be able to do a flag retirement. And so we did a flag retirement at one of the assemblies for the school. So the key was, what were we doing to really embed ourselves in a service-oriented mindset with the school? And that was the in order to be able to get to the school. And that allowed us then to be able to say, hey, I know Canada School District is strict on this, but can we pass out some flyers? Can we get flyers to you guys? Or if we can't pass them out to the 7th grade classes, can we at least put them in the office so that people can pick them up? And maybe the teachers can grab them and pass them out themselves. And it was just that type of, this is what I can do for you if you can do this for me, that really got it going, right? And so I ran this program every spring. Now here's why, if we can go to the next slide. The reason why is because as a leader, I knew that if I was going to run the bait and pal patrol method, I needed to have more than 20 Scouts in the troop. And when I joined, there were 13, including the 7 that I brought over. And that's just not effective. It's not enough to really provide a well-rounded program. And so really the target audience and those that could benefit the most from this, if you're on the call today, if you have less than 20 Scouts in your troop, if you do not have a specific relationship with a pack, if you do not have if you have a lot of Scouts in your unit that were 40% or more, call it, are life Scouts, you want this, because if you're not growing, you're dying, right? It's as simple as that. Kids fall out of the program, life events happen, they age out, they get their eagle, and they move on. If you're not growing, you're dying. Right? It's as simple as that. And that was a mantra that we followed every year when I was in the troop. right? So what's in it for leaders? Well, one of the things that was a concern for my assistant scoutmasters was, hey, we get a lot more kids in here. It's going to be more complicated. Yeah, that's true. But the reality is you have a lot more opportunity to get other adult volunteers if you do that. And if you're not recruiting adult volunteers at the same time that you're recruiting scouts, you're missing out on a golden opportunity. Anytime anybody came to the troop or anybody that I talked to, the first thing I would try to find out is, did any of them ever have any scouting experience in their background? Because if they did, I was on them. I was like, okay, what are you doing to help out? But the other thing that I really established, quite honestly, with parents was, listen, when you join the troop, this is a boy-run organization. I did not have girls in the unit. Our charter organization did not sponsor that, and at the time it was pre-females in Scouts. But I asked them specifically, I want you to do one thing. It could be monthly, it could be weekly, it could be quarterly, it could be annually. But what is the one thing that you have that's a hobby, a skill, a desire, a passion that you can share to meet one of the key scouting missions of scouting, which is adult orientation? What can you share and help us do with the troop? And I would just establish that up front. So if you're doing it right, you're getting additional adult volunteers as a consequence. The reality is we serve youth, and every youth deserves the opportunity for scouting. But honestly, the only ones that are truly going to seek us out are the ones that parents were in Scouts when they were younger. And so we've got to get the message out to everyone else. And if we're truly not open to those that don't have scouting in their background, we're selling ourselves short as an organization. I'm a second-generation Eagle Scout. My son is a third-generation Eagle Scout. The reason I am still here with my son 6 years out of the program is because I am very hopeful that there is a fourth-generation Thomas at some point in the future that's going to be an Eagle Scout. Now, I told my kids a couple weeks ago at Christmas time, listen, yeah, a decade, 15 years out from now is okay. It doesn't have to be anytime soon. But there's an expectation there's going to be another Thomas as an Eagle Scout at some point in the future. And I want to make sure there's a thriving program in Arizona where that's going to be a possibility on that. So that's one of the reasons I'm still involved. So what can you do to get to the other youth? And when you do, what you find is that some of them are some of the best leaders. The more youth you have, the more opportunity you have to truly have those A personality youth leaders that are really going to drive the unit, right? And make it easy to be an adult volunteer, an adult leader in a unit when you've properly empowered those youth. So the more youth that you have, the more opportunity you have to have really great youth leadership. The additional adult help always hurts, and I absolutely encourage everybody to establish that up front. The reason for the spring, obviously, is that if you focus on this now, when your Weebles do crossover, all the new guys are going to be in the troop at the same exact time. And the new youth, all there at the same time, means they're all on the same kind of schedule, the same path. Doing it now in the first quarter is essential, as everyone knows, to make those youth comfortable before they get to summer camp. And everybody that was in the Scouts as a youth, you know what I'm talking about. You never, ever forget your first year at camp. You never forget it, right? And that is the most powerful retainer of youth, is getting them to summer camp. But if you're a parent and you're sketchy and you don't know Scouts, you're not going to be fully game for that unless you get an opportunity to go on 1 or 2 campouts with the troop prior to summer camp. So it's a really good time to look at this in the first quarter. And again, 1 or 2 schools. What are we doing to embed ourselves in those schools? So that's best practices, and that's been tried and true across the board. If you're doing specifics as it relates to getting the word out and identifying a bona fide recruitment chair and identifying a location and a date to do this, council is prepared to mobilize a lot of resources against that. But probably the coolest thing is you are hearing it here first. So everybody familiar with introductory rates on credit cards, right? Everybody familiar with that, right? 0% interest for your first year. We have a introductory rate opportunity for new scouts, new to the scouting program, not crossover, brand new. If you are brand new to scouting, you have the opportunity to go to the council camp for free this year. right? It's a brand new opportunity for scouts. Council will comp that as long as you're driving to that population that aren't scouts today. So membership wise, here's where we are. In 2021, we finished the year just over 5,900 youth in the council. In 2022, we finished the year with just over 5,800 youth in the council. That was after a big and a successful Cub Scout recruiting, but we lost a ton of Scout youth in the recharter process this year, and we didn't pick them up again in the fall. So it's super critical that if we're going to have a thriving program in the state of Arizona, that we take advantage of this, take advantage of the promotion, take advantage of really being purposeful and organized and targeting schools and going out and embedding ourselves in headhunting in those schools. But I want to open it up for discussion. First and foremost, has anybody done this in the past? Has anybody tried this in the past? We have a few people from different councils. We have a couple groups that tried this last year. One I know was extremely successful. They actually recruited 3 times the number of scouts that they had previously when they went out to a junior high and just started getting embedded within the junior high. It was fantastic. Brand new scout, non-crossover youth. It was fantastic. But anybody have any stories to share first and foremost? Any other best practices that would be relevant for the group to hear? Please, by me, let me open it up. It says, if you're working with a school district, get the DE involved. So, I mean, that's true. When I was working in the schools, like I was the one that got the door open, but it's the DE that is the one that's their job. That's the professional's job. However, when a professional is going into a principal, it's like cold calling, right? I mean, there's no relationship. It takes a parent to get the door open so that the DE can close the sale. It's really not the volunteer's job to sell on it. Any stories? Anyone? Doug, you've had a lot of good info to share in the past. Anything to share on spring recruitment, Doug? Have you guys ever tried it?
We did a fall recruitment many years ago, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah. How was, I mean, was it purposeful? Were you targeting a school and targeting to bring in people that hadn't been introduced to scouting in the past?
Yeah, we targeted a school and we actually did get, I think we got like a half a dozen that ended up joining because of it.
Yeah, right on. That's great to hear. I know the PACs that did this in the fall for fall recruitment for the PACs, there was fantastic success. It was 3 times the number of scouts that they picked up previously versus last year, which is why the Cub Scout numbers look as good as they do right now. So great to see. Anybody else have any success stories on troop recruitment?
Jess Rankin from Troop 531.
Go ahead, Jess. Thanks for jumping in.
You know, I wanted to share just, I'm always encouraging the boys that they can bring a friend out. Plus it's built into, I think it's it's first class, I think, where, you know, they have to invite somebody to come out. And I always, even when I get contacted by people, I'm always just same as like when I'm hiring somebody for my work, it's fit. And so I always tell people like, hey, come check us out, come a couple times and see if we're a fit for you. And Absolutely. I always say a fit for you and your son. You know, so that has been very helpful. It's not a hard sell. It's more of a, you know, see if this is the right thing for you. I always give them a caution that, you know, more than likely your son's not going to know anybody. So he's going to feel a little out of place, but, you know, over time he makes friends and then, you know, he ends up enjoying that. My other philosophy, this sounds bad, but I still stick with it. Is I always say I'm not recruiting the scout, I'm recruiting the parent.
Yeah.
And my reason is, you know, most of the, you know, we're an all boy troop, but most of the boys, you know, they get a ride from their parent to come to a meeting, and they get a ride from their parent to, you know, make it to at least the drop off point for camping or something like that. And I always imagine there's that conversation on the way there or on the way back. And so what I mean by that is if I can find a way to have the parent be involved or active or something like that, or feel like even if they're not wearing a cool tan shirt, which makes you look even more handsome, that some way, somehow that they are involved, they feel connected. And so I'm really after the parent, because they're the ones that, in my opinion, many times they're the ones talking a kid out of scouts, whatever that time of, they decide, you know what, I want to do a Monday night and I don't want to, I don't want to, I want to stay at home and watch Netflix or whatever it is. I think there's just got to be that attitude that we're after the parent. So,
Jess, that is fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that, because the bottom line is I think the biggest cop out, honestly, for parents is when they say, well, it's up to him. I mean, if you're recruiting a fifth grader, you're letting a fifth grader make a decision on if they're going to do something that's going to expand their character and broaden their horizons. Come on. They're not going to know any better than that. It absolutely is the parents. Crossover ceremonies, honestly, that's for the youth. And if you do it right, it's a rite of passage. Yeah. But when you're recruiting, when you're talking to parents that aren't familiar with scouting and scouting program, you are absolutely recruiting the parents. I think that's well said. Well said. Rob asked a question that I think is a great question. What are we doing for unique activities on a recruitment night? So there's a couple of people put stuff in the comments. Catapults. I can tell you that my unit built a 9-foot trebuchet one year, and some of the best times we ever had was night launches of different fruits to test what happened with different fruits, tying glow sticks to them to see what would happen. I mean, it went over for years. It was fantastic. So anything with fire on those nights is also usually a win in my experience. How to make fire, how to build a bird's nest, how to be safe with fire, how to set up a proper log cabin or a teepee fire. And demonstrating that was always a big win as well. Anybody else have any best practices to share on a recruitment night?
I'll jump in there, Ken. I know I posted it there in the chat, but I know, dear, for me, a lot of times it would be if I talked to my scouts when we were, having a PLC or whatever it may be, I would try to get them, hey, Ken, what would your friends want to come out and do, to try to get them to think what is going to get them to invite their friends? Because a lot of times as a scoutmaster, I'm like, oh, I love to do these things, but it needs to be something that your specific scouts are going to invite their friends to. For my scouts, a lot of times it was capture the flag, ultimate frisbee, longboarding. Those were some of the things that they really wanted to do, and we were able to identify those things because it was the things that those scouts would bring their friends to.
There you go. All right. Randy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, we just did a recruiting event. It was in December, and the guys wanted to organize kind of a winter carnival thing where the Weeblos youth came with it, and they had different things set up to do, one of which included throwing cream pies at the Scoutmaster.
Nice.
And
I was going to ask you what you do different with your hair, Randy. It looks fantastic. There you go.
I think it's gray now. You should have seen it after that.
Nice.
But, and the guys did a really good job putting this together themselves. I walked into it kind of worried that, is this going to come together? Because I didn't see a lot of email traffic, but it did. And, just a lot of different fun events with things, and they could get little prizes from it. But something to get them moving around and interacting with the boys in the troop.
Right on.
And it worked.
How'd it go for you in December, Randy?
Oh, I think it went well. I think, trying to do it in December was probably not our best choice. Yeah. It's just really busy with it, but that's what
Family
we wanted
calendars.
To try.
All right.
And I think we'll probably do it again. But we do spring recruiting as well, with Horizon Community Learning Center and others with it. And we picked up some youth from that, and it's been very helpful with it. And it helps a lot when, the guys that go to school there know
Absolutely.
Their kids and get them involved that way.
Absolutely. So for everybody that not familiar with the area, so Randy's in Ahwatukee,
Mhm.
And the Horizon is a junior high, it's a grade school, junior high school combo charter school, right, Randy?
Yeah, it's the charter school, goes all the way from
Actually,
pre-K
it's
to
high, yeah,
high
it's all
school.
high school. So
Yeah.
great choice of schools because it's a smaller school, but it's got multiple grades in it. That's fantastic.
And the mascot of Horizon is the eagle because one of the founders, Eagle Scout.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right, very good.
So
Any other best practices? Doug, go ahead.
Ken, I was just going to say, one of the things that that we do in my troop is not an event per se, but it's just encouraging the scouts to invite their buddies to come check us out. And if that happens, we give them, that red, white, and blue recruiter patch, but we make a big deal about it. It's the very coveted, very sought after recruiter patch. And some of the scouts just can't wait to get that thing sewn on their uniform because they leave it on there forever. But one of the things I tell them is, hey, look, if you got a buddy that you want to invite, don't invite them to a troop meeting because nobody wants to go to a meeting. Ask them if they'd like to go camping in a couple of weekends.
There you go.
Have them go camping
Absolutely.
with us. Have them and their parents come join us. One of our best tools for parents is that we have an adult grub master, and the grub master cooks for any adults who don't want to cook. And so they'll go and buy the food and cook the meals and wash the dishes, and all the parent has to do is show up with an empty plate, and they like that a lot.
Right on.
But we just say, hey, invite them to a camp out. That's really where they're going to see how we operate. Is at a camp out. That's where the rubber meets the road.
The family that eats together
once they
stays
find
together,
camping.
right?
What's that?
The family that eats together stays together.
There you go.
Absolutely. No, Saturday night, my unit, we won in a camporee. We won a 20-quart Dutch oven that we call Big Dutch. And we would take this on campouts, and Saturday night, the adult meal was cooked in that Dutch oven. Everybody brought a piece. It was a stone soup kind of thing. And what we would do is it was a communal meal where everybody participated. It was a great way for the adults to bond. I mean, we came up with some fantastic recipes. I think everybody's favorite was the Arizona roadkill stew. So we came up with some fantastic recipes. I think that's a great comment. But here's what I'm going to ask everybody to do. And Matt's going to cover what council's willing to invest in on this in a second here. But beyond this incentive, right? So our introductory rate offer for new youth to the program. What I really want you to do, again, if you've got a unit, our average scouting unit today has 20 scouts in it. Specifically, if you're talking about boy troops, if you're talking about boy and girl units, then it's an average of 19 scouts. If you have 19 scouts or less in particular, if you're not associated with the pack, if you have the majority of your unit is life scouts, I really want you to try something different this spring. And I want you to be intentional, and I want you to plan a recruiting night where it isn't just invite your friends, because that should be standard SOP for everyone, right? That's just standard practice. So be intentional, find the junior high, find the 7th graders that you want to go. What of your scouts, what school is the closest? What are the majority of your scouts in your troop? What school do they go to? Find the scouts that can get you in and get you at a school where you can get the ability to be able to get into the school and advertise and bring them to an intentional scouting recruitment night in the spring. I know it's different. I know we haven't really done this as a council in the past. I'm telling you, it works if you're just intentional. And we can't be unintentional. This has to be very purposeful. There's got to be someone that says, I'm this event chair. I'm the membership chair. I'm the recruiting chair for this event. This is when we're going to do it. This is where we're going to do it. If we can do those things, the council is willing to invest to be able to support that. But more importantly, that's what's going to sustain the program. That's what's going to make sure that I have a grandchild who has an opportunity to get an Eagle Scout. So Matt, can you talk to everybody about what the council will do to help support this? And again, this is different, and I'm asking you to be different. This is post-pandemic different, and it is urgent that we get out there. And just a couple quick numbers before Matt gets into it, right? 5,800 youth is where we are currently. That is 0.65% of all of the youth that is available in our market share. In the council boundaries, it's 0.65. Where the national average is at and what it targets is 2% of youth. If we were serving 2% of our youth that are in our council boundaries right now, there would be 18,000 scouts in the council, not 5,800. And if there were 18,000 scouts in the council, can you imagine what Camporese would look like? It would be insane. It would be phenomenal. It would be something that would truly be an event that scouts would walk away from and be like, man, that was awesome. So again, I encourage you, do it differently this spring. Try something different, be intentional, organize something purposeful. Don't advertise, headhunt. Matt, what can council do to help everybody out on this?
Awesome. Well, I first of all just want to thank Kent for taking the time to share some of his thoughts, and especially I thank all of you for the engagement and the conversation, because that's really what this comes down to is we work together to identify what those best practices are, what those things are that we can do to help each other grow scouting. There's a lot of families that are out there that want to participate. The trick is how we engage with them, and I think Kent is spot on that this spring we all want to be intentional, that we go out there and decide we want to grow our unit. I know when I was a scout, I participated in a troop for a while that was small. We had about 6 kids. That's one patrol. And when we got to that point where we had 3 and 4 patrols, my scouting experience was all the better because I had the opportunity to provide leadership. We had the opportunity for patrol competition. And so we want all of our units to be able to provide the best program that they can. We as a council, we have some things that we want to do to help you guys out. But you guys can see there on the screen now, I put a struck right through where it says GCC plan, because that's not what we want it to be. It doesn't want to be, this is the GCC plan, this is Matt's plan. We want it to be our plan. Simply put, we want to work with each of you and do what is best for your unit to help you guys be more intentional and to help you do everything that you can to invite more and more families into your troop. And so that's, I think, my biggest message to you guys tonight is that we, Grand Canyon Council staff, our district leadership, our commissioners, our membership chairs like Kent, we want to help your troop grow. And so there on the bottom, I have the help me, help you. That's what we want to do. We want to do everything we can to implement some of these best practices. And I'll touch on some of the best practices that we've already talked about this evening. But I also recognize that for some of our troops, it's not possible to say we can hit every single best practice this year because this may be new. Can't just challenge us to do something new, do something different. So maybe it isn't that your troop can do every single one of our best practices, but you can adopt just a couple of those, and I know that the results will come as a result. So some of them we've already talked about this evening, but we want to do specific activities for new and non-scouts. Rob had a great question. What types of activities? Remember the things we talked about tonight. Do those things that your scouts want to invite their friends to go to. And oftentimes, if it's the things that your scouts want to invite their friends to, those are the things that are going to work for those non-scouts that don't necessarily already have a friend in your troop. When you go to your school, when you get engaged in other avenues, you're going to be doing activities that non-scouts want to come and check you guys out. I didn't catch the name, but there was a leader earlier that said, even talk with your scouts and your leaders so you know that this is the night to invite people, because we want them to be there on the night that's designed specifically for them. And so do things that are going to work really well for them. Be intentional that these are activities for everybody to participate in, not just those that have been in the program for several years. I put on here best practices. We want you to partnership with your packs, have a strong pack partnership for that crossover. But the reality is, if you kind of caught a little bit of some of the numbers that Kent was sharing earlier, we have 580 or so Webelos right now that will be ready to cross over this spring. We know that about 2/3 of those will cross over with us, and that's great. However, we have 160 troops in the council. That means fair share, everybody only gets about 2 people at crossover. We know there's troops out there that get 10 kids through crossover, and we're happy that those troops are getting 10. What that also means is there's 4 other troops somewhere that got none. So we do need to be intentional in going after families that haven't yet had the opportunity to participate in scouting, or maybe they participated at a younger age in Cub Scouts but aren't a current Weeblo. And that's where the school really comes in. We want you to engage with your school, find ways to get more involved. Not only is that doing some community service and getting the scouting brand and getting our scouts out in the community, but it's going to allow us to show the things that we do and also advertise and share to our currently non-scouting families the great things that we can do through scouting. Kent mentioned a lot of different things that you can do through our school. Cameron had put in the chat, engage your district executive. We talk with our district executives about the different ways that we can engage with our schools, how we can develop that relationships with the principals. So engage your commissioners, engage your district executive. We want to help you identify the ways that you can get better engagement with that school. We talked about that need for peer-to-peer focus and have a social media presence. Post, make sure your scouts are sharing the things that they're doing, taking pictures at the activities. So everybody around them, not just their immediate friends, but their more distant friends, that they see everything that they're doing. That's one of the ways that we want to make sure that we're helping you in your unit. We have set money aside to help promote your events through social media to make sure that we're reaching out to people beyond the school, people that are in your community that can come and check out some of the events. Kent talked about what will be a great best practice for us this spring is that we keep that cost of entry into scouting low. We have a wonderful opportunity this spring that all of our new scouts that join in the first quarter of the year will get a campership or a scholarship to attend camp this year completely free. That's something we've never done before, but we believe that scouts need that camp opportunity, especially those new scouts need that camp opportunity, that all of those new scouts that join here in the first quarter of the year will receive that campership.
New to scouting families, right, Matt? New to scouting families.
Yeah. Specifically those who are new. So crossovers, they've been in the program, they don't qualify for that incentive, but new to scouting families. Another best practice is to make sure that you're working with the families as they're joining, that they understand what that cost to join is, and that you're doing everything you can, that it isn't a barrier for those families. Scouts that join here in the spring, they likely didn't get to participate in camp cards, for sure not popcorn, because that was months ago. Your unit may do other fundraising opportunities, but scouts who join in February or March may have missed that out. And so we want to make sure that as you're welcoming new families into your program, talk with them and make sure that the cost isn't becoming a barrier. The last best practice is, as you're getting out on social media, as you're doing these events, make sure you're staying on top of your BS Scout. Your commissioners and district executives can help guide you through that, how you can update your BS Scout fan, how you can follow up on those leads and approve those applications. But we see a lot of leads that come in through BS Scout because they heard about scouting somewhere or saw scouting do something at their school, and those leads kind of go unresponded for a period of time. And if a family waits about 2 weeks, they've likely moved on to something else. And so we encourage you guys to do those best practices. One of the tools that we want to implement to help you and your troop take advantage of all of the things that we have is what we're calling our marketing worksheet. And you guys can see it there on the screen. It's likely pretty small on your screens, but we want you to identify in your unit who is your recruitment lead, who is going to be your leader that takes a lead on this to help you and your troop grow, and then meet with our district executives or your district commissioner and go through this marketing worksheet. Let us know the things that you're planning on doing and identify with us how we can best help you. I'm going to highlight a couple of things here on this sheet. is that we want to know how we can help you with your Be a Scout pin, how we can help you better follow up on those leads and applications. We want to know the pack that you're working with. And then the next two sections that are on there are perhaps the most important, is we need to know what school you already had that best relationship with, or where a good number of your scouts are coming from. So we can get opportunities to meet with that principal, find ways for your troop to get involved there. And we want to spend our time developing that relationship with the principal, which gives you guys that chance to develop it with the school as a whole through some of those service opportunities that Kent was talking about earlier. So that's one of the first resources that we have for your troops is our time. Our time to go and do those meetings with those principals and talk with them about how we can best promote scouting. And then the bottom section there talks about when you host this Welcome to Scouting event. When you're doing that activity that's specifically geared towards these non-scouts and these new scouting families, you've designed an activity that is appealing to them, is something that they want to participate in. We want to know when those are occurring. That's going to allow us the opportunity to promote that event out through social media. And then when we meet with you, we want to talk about some of these different resources that we have available and what things would best work for your troop. I would love it if we can give every single one of these resources to every troop, but we know not every troop needs every single one of these resources or is able to follow all of the best practices. But we have some buddy cards. I have a couple of them right here. We order these so you can get these out to your current scouts so they can invite them specifically to the activities that you have coming up. So if your unit will utilize these, we want to get them to you. I have a box of several thousand of those sitting here on my desk. I would love for those to be gone, so I have to order more. We can produce flyers. We have a marketing team that produces flyers, make sure that we're using current images. We're using some of the information and some of the verbiage from the marketing company Labbage that Kent talked a little bit about earlier. We can provide your unit with yard signs. As I shared earlier, we can pay for some social media advertising. We can work with Peach Jar, which is a system that a lot of our schools use to distribute flyers. We have accounts with them and we can cover the costs for that. One of the things we love—
Matt, if they can identify the school and if they can identify the date and the location, we'll pay for the physical flyers, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I was going to say, not only will we do those Peach Jar and digital flyers and things like that, if we're able to work with the school, we would love to actually print those flyers out and get them to them. And you actually reminded me, Ken, I missed a line there on that marketing worksheet, facility rental details. If the school that you're at and the facility that you want to do this event at, if you're wanting to use the cafeteria at the school to do your activity, or maybe the field at the school, we can help cover the cost for that. We'll work with the district to get all that paperwork taken care of. So you're able to hold that event there at the school, a place that all of these scouts are familiar with. And then the last thing that I put on there at the very bottom is what additional resources, what things are we, the Grand Canyon Council, not currently providing that we can provide to your troop to help you be more successful, to help promote your troop to more families, whether it's through the school, through social media, or through anything else that you've come across. We want to expand the toolbox that we have and provide even more to all of our units. But all of this kind of conversation comes down to, or where this conversation starts, is watch for your district executive and your district commissioners to reach out to our units, to invite them to set up a time to go through and fill this sheet out. We want to have one-on-one conversations to know how we can best help you and help your troop. I'll be honest, in the last couple of years, it's been, this is the plan, go run the plan. This is exactly what you need to do. But your troops are all different. Your leaders are different. The situations that each of you guys are in is different. And so we want to work with you individually. So we're doing what's best for you. And we will have these forms out to our district, or our unit commissioners. They will have a meeting this next Thursday where they're learning about this sheet. So watch for them coming out soon. Our district executives will have them as well. But I look forward to not just myself, but our district executives and our district leadership coming to help you in your unit in the best way that we can. I hope that you're able to implement as many of these best practices as we can. But certainly we want to invest everything possible to help you and your troop grow this spring. I will open it up to questions or turn it to Kent, vice versa, if there's any questions from what I've shared or any additional insight that you guys might have.
Does anybody have any questions for Matt on the logistics? But just as a reminder, here's the ask. The ask is, I mean, honestly, we're in a position where for the council to thrive in the future, we have to recruit. It's got to be a priority, and it's got to be done with a sense of urgency. So the ask is, do something different. If you've not ever planned a purposeful recruiting night, work with your DE, plan one sometime over the next couple months. Identify where, when, and who, so that we can really support the activity. Some of the stuff that came up in the messaging I thought was great. Chris Boson said, you know, rocket launches, pumpkin catapults, fire building, chopped kitchen. I assume that's a kitchen competition. That sounds awesome. Food works, ice cream, soda rocket thing from David on that. Food works, but what you do with the food is what really works. And here's what I mean by that. Fry's sells these little tiny pies, if you've ever seen them in the bakery, right? So maybe there's a contest on what scout can eat those 3 of those small pies the fastest, right? Or if anybody's ever done the saltine cracker thing with who can eat the most saltine crackers without drinking water on that, right? Or things like that, like food, but what you're doing with food and having fun with food is certainly one of the things that absolutely has worked for me in the past. How you being creative? Like each of the patrols cooking something, a dish at a scouting night using their chuck boxes, the most creative use of bacon, right? Just something like that, right? What you do with food is as important as the food itself. Dutch oven never fails from Abby. I totally agree with that. There is nothing like a cobbler. And everybody's got their own private cobbler recipe that everybody's super proud of. You guys know what I'm talking about. How far will a mini pie fly in a trebuchet? Nice, Doug. You know, the best that we actually ever had with that was we were launching watermelon. And we thought watermelon would produce this like giant splatter when it hit the park on the other side, which we had permission from the church to use the park. But it didn't. It actually just it didn't fracture or run everywhere. It actually would just kind of sit in a big blob, unfortunately. So definitely have fun with it. What Zoe? What did you say? You said. Get rid of the ice cream eating due to food launching sounds fun. Okay, all right, yep, absolutely. Hey, there is something to be said about, do we want to really feed the juvenile diabetes beast? Maybe we shouldn't be looking at pies. I totally agree with you on that, or ice cream. But have fun with it, enjoy it, but be purposeful, please. So any last minute questions for Matt at all for anyone?
Ken, I'll jump in there. Just 2 questions. I answer them in the chat, but I know sometimes people aren't able to see the chat. I had a question from John about who that campership is available for. That's for scouts who joined during the first quarter of the year. And then Rob asked what the method will be to get for people to apply for that campership. We're going to have a process for that. It will likely look very similar to what our current campership process is. There's going to be a form that they'll need to fill out to apply for that. It does, if we didn't say it earlier, I'll say it now. It applies specifically to our camp, Geronimo specifically. This offer actually is extended to Cub Scouts as well. If there's a Cub Scout that joins in the first quarter of the year, they can get a campership to attend our summer program at RPC. But we'll have a form that you guys, that those families can use to apply for that campership. But with this incentive and with this offer, they'll be, in short, guaranteed 100% campership since they qualify to receive that. Watch for more details on that soon. Tonight's kind of the first time we're announcing that.
But so what we're saying is a new scout to a troop joining January, February, March, Q1 has the opportunity, if they attend Geronimo with the troop, to get a full campership. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't, I know we got a question from someone earlier. I don't think it was on here, but they'd asked, well, what if our troop is going somewhere else? If part of your troop, if you're sending your first year scouts to Geronimo, we can, then they can qualify for it. We can't pay for other out of council camps, but if they're going to, if you're going to send part of your troop to Geronimo, then they qualify for that, absolutely. And yes, for our Cub Scouts, it's for the RBRC family camp. Davis, I see a hand. Is that because you have something to add in?
I did. Scoutmasters, Matt just mentioned that Geronimo is an amazing opportunity for those first-year campers, even if you guys are going to a different, amazing, beautiful scout camp operated by another council. Here's something cool that I would suggest to you or add into this. You've got a 15-year-old in your troop who can't afford to go out of council. You've got a 16-year-old in your troop that is at football camp the week that you've selected to go to, or you've been drawn to go to film on. You've got folks in your unit that aren't available to make it, unfortunately, to the amazing experience that you've been planning for a year now. Wouldn't it be great if they had a leadership opportunity so that they could shepherd through these younger scouts and they still get their camping experience for it? So if this is a way to help get one more scout to attend camp, it's worth it. I don't know if they mentioned before I came back into this room, but a lot of the reason behind this opportunity is because we know that youth that go to camp stay in scouting. And we know when you stay in scouting, you get these character developing opportunities, you get these leadership training moments, and we know that that's when we can change folks' lives. And so if we can keep these older youth in the program for one more year too, that's not a bad thing. So if you've got the younger scouts going to Geronimo, feel free to send in that one senior scout who otherwise wouldn't be going anywhere. Or heck, have them go to summer camp twice because they're real gung-ho and they're going to earn every single merit badge under the sun.
Those are great thoughts. And so 2 final items. So one is, Matt, where can people find the slide information available?
So that, along with the recording from tonight, will be published next week. That'll be available on the GCC hub. But yeah, just give us a couple of days to take the recording to get that up, but that will be up available this next week.
And Tim, thanks for your reminder in the chat session. As it relates to using food as a mechanism for engagement, it is in the Guide to Safe Scouting. So obviously we always want to follow that activity and follow the items that are listed in that. And the very last thing is, again, please have a sense of urgency, try something different, be intentional around this. Don't just advertise or go to your youth with friends, which should be an ongoing business as usual activity. Go and plan a specific event to bring in those people that deserve the opportunity to hear about scouting and know nothing about it today. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time tonight.